Hi, my name is Dominique, and I am the Programming and Hospitality Manager for Frameline44. We are so thrilled to be doing a Q&A with the cast and crew of CICADA, so I'd like to bring them on and have them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Matt Fifer. I'm a writer, director, and actor on the film CICADA, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Hi, I'm Kieran Mulcair. I'm the co-director. My pronouns are he, him.
Peace and love, everybody. My name is Sheldon D. Brown. I'm an actor and writer on the film He, Him.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Trong. I'm one of the producers on the film, and I go by he, him.
Thank you so much for sharing this film with our audiences, and thank you for being here. We're so glad to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. I'd love to get this started asking you about how the film came to be. So it says it's based on true events. So how did you start putting that into a film language?
Yeah, so I'll start. So it's based on a few major events of my life, told in one summer, and the culmination of that transpired over the course of one winter. I was very depressed, and I just started writing, and it all poured out of me basically over the course of 1 month. I know what it's like to go for a long stretch of time without talking to anybody. I know what it's like to have a lot of these psychosomatic symptoms, and in my own life, they would flare up when certain things were going on in my life or certain things on the news. So for the Sandusky trial, which went on for quite some time, I remember one summer I really thought I had a brain tumor or MS, and no one could convince me otherwise. So I went to a dozen doctors, a cardiologist, a neurologist, and thank God I had insurance at the time. And in the end, of course, I had nothing. But funny enough, after we wrapped the shoot, I did go to the hospital with dysphagia, which is when you can't swallow, because I actually had something. So for all the hypochondriacs out there, I guess like your symptoms aren't real, but maybe they are. So.
Yeah, me and Matt, we've known each other for a number of years now. We met back in 2015, and he reached out to me when I was randomly in New York for a gig about this project he was working that he had written and that he was working on. And he was like, "You would be like, you're perfect for this film. Like this, you're like, you're on the first page." And I kept thinking like, what? Like I've never done a film before. Uh, okay. And so we talked a little bit about it. We went to this bar in Brooklyn, Syndicated, and we didn't really talk too much about the film, but just that we wanted to do it. And crazily enough, a few months after that, our encounter, I was shot in a drive-by shooting. And so I spent about a month in the hospital recovering, not really knowing if I was going to be doing any sort of acting or performance again. And Matt reached out to me the entire time, checking in on me, and just saying like, "Hey, if you really want to do this, like I think we can do this, and there's a way for us to tell this story and make it richer with your story and your help." And so we kind of transformed the film and creating a narrative that involves two men dealing with trauma that is very present in their life. And even though we encounter them at different times in our lives, the presence was still there. And build a really great working relationship and really working through our trauma together and working on this film. And then I met Kieran right in the beginning of this process, and he can talk to you more about how he came onto the film.
Yeah, I was brought on as co-director. I'd known Matt. I'd known Matt's work first, and then we became friends. He joined an acting class I was in, during which I was working on material about childhood sexual abuse, and I came forward about that being my experience in my own life, and Matt and I connected on that, and we worked together on a short film. He directed me in that, and about a year later, he came to me with this script, and I just thought it was one of the best screenplays I'd ever read, and I had never directed anything before, but I was interested in it, and so he asked me to co-direct, and based on my own experiences, I felt like this was something I had, something to bring to it. So, yeah, the handling the lived experiences of these people was a real honor and terror, but I was really grateful to be involved.
Yeah, and I should mention, I guess in terms of timeline, just to contextualize, the whole process was probably like under 4 months of just, I got the script probably like in spring, and then, we had a month where, all right, we're doing this. And a month before we shoot, we hear about Sheldon, and we're not sure if anything's happening anymore. So it sort of was this huge rush of, kind of last minute energy that everyone came and decided we were doing this. And we shot like less than a month. We, got everyone together and we just kind of did it. And that's how everyone's stories are sort of authentic and accurate, because we just kind of had no choice but to like incorporate them and incorporate them well.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about how you employ humor in the film. Can you talk about why it was important to insert like these moments of not just joy, but of like wit and humor?
Thanks. I love that question. We, um, yeah, this was such an important part of the story. I mean, growing up, I was able to deflect so much for 13 years because of humor, and I never really answered a question uh, straight. I couldn't. So when it came time to writing this, I think it was twofold. I was trying to cushion the blow of like telling the world this story, and at the same time, like so many of the people who are actually in the film, um, were like my own doctor and my own therapist growing up, like Colby Smulders on How I Met Your Mother and Scott Adsit on 30 Rock. I didn't have a therapist. I didn't go to the doctor often, and these people, in a lot of ways, were, that the only healing people in my life. So I know that the tone is like jarring at times, and I know a lot of these films could be very dramatic and not have much levity at all. And that was, I think, like some people just watch films as traumavores and they're just trying to get off on their own pathos. And I didn't want to give that to them. That wasn't my experience. I wanted them to like stay, I don't know, with Ben, the character, and in that way, I hope it's self-reflexive. And then I want to say that when I called Sheldon the first time when he was in the hospital, this was like a day after he had been in the hospital. He's cracking jokes and he's making light of his situation. And there's no way that I don't think any of us could have gotten through what we went through without humor. Kieran included. Kieran is such a funny person as well. And I'm really happy that you found the film funny.
Yeah, I think it's like very, very witty, and it really keeps up the momentum of the story. What's it like to play something so real and especially for Sheldon, something that had happened so recently?
It's a never-ending journey of like feeling a bit of release when you're um, actively processing what you've been through. And that is my job, as an actor, as an artist. Um, we have this insane um, we're just insane in the fact that we torture ourselves. Sometimes we torture ourselves by taking the pain that not only we're feeling, but what we're reflecting from the world around us. and trying to create something out of it. And a part of me was thinking how important it was that now that I am alive and able to really, really use whatever this experience that I went through to share it. And hopefully, people who are dealing with pain and trauma um, can find some healing through it. And I felt so supported throughout the process too, because I had a great team who was really willing to meet me there. So, if there was an opportunity where I'm feeling like, oh man, I'm afraid of letting myself go, I know that, Matt is right there doing the exact same thing. And Kieran is right there holding us in this space, ready to do the exact same thing. And so we approached this work with such care and love for it. So it ended up being such a cathartic process in the end because it felt like we really worked through we worked through a lot of stuff. We did in a beautiful way, in a beautiful way.
Yeah, that's sort of like the beautiful thing about art, right? Is that it can be cathartic, and so that would bring me to another point about the film. There's a scene where Ben decides to tell all of his friends about his experience as a child, and all of these people share their own stories, and it felt really realistic because I think everybody has a story. So can you all talk a little bit about what the reaction has been to you sharing your stories through this film?
I guess I'll start. A lot of those moments were. Thank you for saying that. A lot of those moments were, I guess, felt authentic because they were based in my own stories, and people don't know how to respond. They don't know how to talk about. They don't know how to receive that information, and a lot of times I got like, in the beginning they would say, "Oh well, something happened to me, like, but it had nothing to do with it. It was like once I fell down the stairs, and it was like trying to, like, it's just really, it's a really awkward process. And one of the experiences with the last person who spoke in that montage, I was with a friend Gil, who came to set that day, and we had a few lines for her. She wasn't really like landing. She wasn't getting anywhere with them, and she's a great actor. So Kieran yelled out, "Gil, just do whatever feels natural." So she took a deep breath, and I remember her looking in my eyes, and I just knew that at that moment, what she was about to tell me was coming from, deep. And what she said that day was what had actually happened to her, and she had not really been open to many people before about that, and she did it in front of all of us, total strangers. And I knew at that moment that we were doing something right.
I think one of my favorite lines in the whole film is when Ben says, "When I tell people, they look at me like they were just molested." And I know that in my own experience, opening up about my own experiences, it's been I've had, it's run the gamut of reactions in my own life. So I loved recording that montage because it's just so true. And I've been laughed at as a response. Sometimes you are treated like you ruined someone's day, or sometimes there's this sick fascination where people start asking, you do so much to compose yourself, and then people start asking very detailed questions that you're like, I'm not ready to divulge all this. So having the that Matt created this way of expressing this, and that Sheldon created his own specific way of expressing. Also, I just want to make very clear, Sheldon was dealing with something so fresh. I am still in awe of the fact that he was so brave to share his own experience of what he had gone through. And I just don't know many artists who, I don't know if I know any artists who have done that. And I want to commend him for doing that, because one thing that I think both Matt and I can claim is the safety of time distance in, you know, artistically expressing what we have. Not that it's necessarily that safe, you know, but Sheldon was doing something very dangerous and something very brave. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. I just have to say that it has been an absolute blessing to see some of the responses that we've been receiving since, you know, it's getting its exposure. It is so important to have for queer men, for Black queer men, for queer men who have been abused, for anyone carrying trauma, to be able to see themselves on screen and to be able to see themselves thriving, you know, and not just by like something completely being positive and everything, but that like someone is taking their trauma and they are working through it. And they might not always get it together when they need to, but they continue to find that path to love and loving themselves. And so hearing people say that they you know, they see themselves on screen, that people are addressing their relationship issues that they're going through, the trauma that they're going through, and that they feel a sense of connection and authenticity from it. That's what makes this whole journey worthwhile, you know. So I would do it again. I would definitely do it again.
Jeremy, what has your experience been on this film?
It's been a crazy ride, I think, and you know, part of being part of this crew is just having a very small crew, and I think because of that, we've been very tight knit in sort of the way that we've been able to approach taking this film from, you know, inception to where it is now. And you know, when we were making the film, it was like 8 people in like a small, like one loft in Matt's old apartment. You know, it was middle of summer. It was so sweaty. Everyone was doing like 6 jobs. It was like this crazy ordeal where we were shooting a whole movie in like 3 weeks, and you know, it was all very intense. And I think you kind of see the benefit of that in the film, and that a lot of what is in the film was sort of accidental, or was just stuff that we had to roll with, and stuff that was very spontaneous that we ended up really enjoying. So it's been a really interesting process for all of us, I think, but especially on the producing side, just being able to figure out how far rolling with things can get you, and also seeing a film like this that was so intimate and so much on the smaller side, just see such a large audience and to resonate with so many people. It's been really, really nice.
One of the things about this film is that the time and the place is like very specific. So I sort of want to ask about how you all like marked time between like the cicadas and the like omnipresent like coverage of the trials. Can you talk a little bit about like the markings of time in the film?
Yeah, so Sandusky was convicted in 2012, but the conversation was happening all the way from like, it had been going on for quite a long time, and it continued to go on after that. The cicadas, they hit in 2013. That was the big brood. So when I was thinking about this story, again, it was like a culmination of a few events in my life told in one summer. It was important that like it was pre-DOMA. The gay marriage wasn't legal yet. It was a different New York. It was a different time. But more specifically about cicadas, they come out every 13 and 17 years. That was like the original inception of the project. It just jumped out on screen one day, and I noticed that those numbers those numbers are very significant to me. 13 years had passed before I finally told my best friend Jill, and it was 17 years before I told my mother, which was she was the last person I told. So timing-wise, it always had to go in that time. I'm born in 1990, so it had to be specifically 2012, 2013. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about casting the comedians? You have Bowen Yang and you mentioned Scott Adsit. Can you talk a little bit about how you got them involved?
Yeah, so Kieran and I could speak on this. We cast everybody through, they were either friends or friends of friends. So going into this, like, I knew that Sandra Balea would play my mother in the film. She's a brilliant comedic actress. Look her up. She's amazing. Freckle came on next. Freckle plays Teresa. Freckle I had worked with before. Bowen was through Matt. So I worked with Matt Rogers before. They are on Las Culturistas together. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And then Kieran. And then Scott is with Scott has been a friend as well, and is the boyfriend of my mother in the film. So, and then Kieran can speak.
Yeah, and Kobe happens to be a close friend of mine, and so I just knew that she would love the script and sent it to her. So we went out to LA to shoot her coverage. Her scenes, and that was really, really special to have her involved too.
Yeah, when we first got the script, obviously, you read the log line and then you read the script, and Matt's like, okay, so I want to cast all of these comedians, and it kind of initially doesn't make sense, and we were confused, like how we're even going to get some of these people, and they all sort of came, I think, as a result of the script, and we're very moved by it, and I think their presence obviously makes a really huge difference in both the tone and just how great they were to work with in general, and having them on board has made a huge difference for us. Yeah.
And also, Matt is a secret comedic genius, and he doesn't he wouldn't call himself that, I'm sure, but he's genuinely witty, and I really don't. I mean, you'd have to know me pretty well to know how rarely I use that term, but he is so much wittier and so much more talented than he realizes he is, and it really is his. I mean, most of the funny stuff is, even with all these comedians involved, is from his mind. So
this is baloney, and every day on set at lunch it was Kieran and Sheldon making the jokes. I was the director, didn't want to talk to anybody. It was like these two were the. I don't know where my screen is in comparison, but these ones.
When Matt's appointing, he's funny, so that's how you know he doesn't want to continue.
Thanks, Jerry.
I love that the dog's name is Clonopin. I think that's the funniest. All right, thank you all so much for sharing with us. Thanks to our Frameline audiences for sticking around for the Q&A, and thank you to Pilar for interpreting this Q&A.
Thank you for that.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Appreciate it.